Hello, good afternoon. This is Adil Fazal here, market analyst at CFDs.com. Be sure to visit the website www.cfds.com for your trading needs, the CFD brokerage, and also qualify for up to a 25% cash bonus. Okay, alternatively, you can visit the educational site www.cfds.education to certainly learn more as well. Okay, in terms of trading now, let's do a market wrap up for the European markets today. The 30th of November 2015. It's Monday, a new trading week begins. Okay, strange week today, or strange start today in terms of the actual market itself. Let's try and decipher exactly how this market has been, how it is going to potentially play out. Okay, now in terms of Asian markets overnight, we had the Nikkei lower, we had the Shanghai more or less flat. We did have a initial sell-off en masse overnight on the Shanghai until we managed to reverse and actually finish positive. We did finish negative on the Hang Seng though. Okay, and mainly the volatility overnight was due to the actual potential inclusion of the yuan in the SDR basket. So if I can potentially bring up a chart on the Nikkei, you can see that we have potentially broken down the Nikkei. But given the fact that we have to, there is talk about potential a new budget and obviously potential more stimulus, etc. That certainly is going to remain in the background. Now we have put in a potential pivot low on the Shanghai index, and we are looking at potential support and move higher on the Shanghai. So the sell-off certainly is over. Now whether or not how, or what should we say, how that materializes in the actual market itself, we'll soon find out. Now potential bottoming tail in today, and that's obviously from my perspective is certainly interpreted as being bullish for the actual market itself. Okay, now in terms of the news flow today, let's try and decipher that as well for you in terms of economic data. We had weaker German retail sales out in the with regards to Europe, and that certainly put a negative bias on the market itself. We also had lending data out in the UK. No real major concern, although mortgage approvals came in slightly under expectations, but still, nevertheless, okay. In terms of consumer price, inflation data out in the Eurozone came in line. No real surprises there. Retail sales were certainly weak in the Eurozone, so again, that was a potential bearish factor. And also in German inflation, again, that's really the crux of the situation. Now, in terms of the US markets, we did have weaker data overall in terms of pending home sales, Dallas manufacturing as well. Literally everything certainly came out negative and potentially weak. But the market is focused on what? QE. Okay, so given the fact that the German retail sales came out weaker than expected, that certainly spurred on the bulls to certainly push the markets even higher. And you can certainly see that with regards to the German DAX. Looking at a 10-minute chart, you hit an initial pivot lower 11,340 before you actually went and made a pivot higher at 11,440. So a very, very bullish price action on the actual German DAX itself. And you can see here we're basically oscillating above the pivot high. The previous pivot high is currently 11,350, 11,360, and we're obviously oscillating above that. So previous resistance equals support, and we're just basically accumulating here and consolidating for a potential new high based on the expectations of more QE. That really literally is the summation of the European indices at present. Okay, now in terms of alternative news flow, nothing really of any importance other than the fact that the market certainly remains fixated on the QE trade. Now if you bring up the chart of the Euro USD, you can see that we're languishing still at the lows of 1.0650, and we are desperately attempting to break that potential support and obviously trade lower, especially with regards to the weaker. I mean, what was surprising today was the fact that we had weaker US data, and yet still the actual euro itself still failed to rally. So this market certainly has QE entrenched within it, and even with a falling contracting wedge pattern, it still fails to break higher. So again, that's a potentially worrying concern, okay, in terms of the actual market itself. Okay, now let's try and break down each indices and see exactly where we are or potentially going to trade. Now looking at a daily chart of the Euro stocks, you can see that we've broken out a previous resistance, and we certainly seem to be consolidating, and we are looking for that gap fill above at 3605. So therefore previous obviously resistance equals support from my perspective. In terms of the 60-minute chart of the Euro Stoxx 50, you can see that we continue to make higher highs. So again, that's a healthy sign. We've held previous resistance equals support today as well. Okay, and we obviously made a new high at 35. If I can just recollect, 3524. Okay, so very, very impressive. Going to a 10-minute chart of the Euro stocks itself, we are seeing weakness here temporarily. We did actually, I was actually long the Euro stocks, and I was plus 10, plus 12 at one point, and it certainly has turned negative. So a potential bearish pattern here. This just need to remain open to this. It depends on obviously how the US markets trade, but this is not looking good now in terms of going forward in terms of the Euro stock. So this is something I'm going to keep an eye on, and I may have to exit my long positions. Given the fact that I was actually short this morning, it was quite a frustrating trade. The market failed to obviously sell off, and now all eyes remain on the actual Euro stocks now, and we do have this potential bearish pattern in play. The pivot high is 3525, the pivot low, or should we say the neckline, is 3500. So you are looking at 3475 potential target on the downside. So remain open to that, and realize that there is a possibility that we could actually potentially trade lower. Okay, now that certainly is an interesting pattern, and we shall see whether or not that plays out. Okay, the S&P 350. Now let me just bring up the actual Euro stocks here, 600 here as well. Bear with me, if I can remember. Yeah. Here we go. See if I can locate this. One second. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is another interesting chart that I need to incorporate here as to gauging strength and resistance, or support strength and on weakness, right? So bear with me. Okay, so this is your stock 600. Now we do have the upper channel resistance, but again, you do have the unfilled gap that needs to close, given the fact that we've got QE, etc., and we've taken out the previous resistance level as well. Okay, so that certainly needs to be digested, and we'll see how the market reacts to that. In terms of the S&P 350, again, looking at a daily chart of the S&P 350, we're still holding that 200 MA, previous support equals resistance, so that's a potentially worrying sign. Okay, in terms of further strength or continue movement in the markets higher. Daily chart of the actual German DAX itself, again, we're still holding that upper channel or upper trend line resistance. Whether or not we can continue to push higher to 11,600 is certainly going to be interesting. The 60-minute chart German DAX, higher highs, higher lows, so there's no real cause for concern here. The bulls certainly have the upper hand. Now the only concern that I have again now is the same pattern I've seen on the Euro stocks and the same potential pattern I'm seeing on the German DAX. Now this is a cause for concern. Everything was hunky-dory and I was actually long and the markets were looking very bullish, but the fact that we failed at this right shoulder is not a healthy sign from my perspective. So this is going to be a worry for me now. If we do get an uptick in the US markets, then I will look to potentially close out on my long position in the Euro stocks. Currently it's more or less flat. I'll see whether or not this can move higher or lower. So this is going to be interesting. Okay, so all eyes on this potential H&S formation, the German DAX 2, with the right shoulder obviously being at 11,400. The head is 11,430. The neckline is 11,340. So quite a substantial drop here, almost a 100-point drop down to the 11,250 level. So looking for a potential geopolitical, socio-economic potential trigger here, and be open to that. Now, in terms of the French CAC, let's have a look at the French CAC and see exactly where this is trading. Looking at your daily chart first and foremost, again, we're still holding that resistance zone, so no real movement or up thrust higher. A 60-minute chart, again, we're still in that resistance zone, so no real movement higher. 10-minute chart, again, is a cause for concern. So if I just update my chart here, and again, you have this H&S formation. So the fact that we failed to obviously push higher, this is not a good sign. Okay, so again, I would certainly exercise some caution here, and you are looking at potential weakness on the Euro stocks, or should we say the French CAC specifically, going forward. So this is going to be a concern for me now. I was very bullish given the fact that we had good price action this morning, but my bias is now slowly starting to change here. So we'll see exactly how US markets fare and how they react. Okay, Now, in terms of the actual FTSE 100 now, let's have a look. So the weekly chart, you can see that we've broken out this key diagonal trend line, certainly a bullish potential formation. Daily chart, you're consolidating. Obviously, we've held this diagonal trend line, potential breakout now to the 6450, 6460 zone. Okay, 60-minute chart, the FTSE 100, we were bullish. We were touching this 116386 potentially moving higher, and obviously you've got that key diagonal trend line, and we are respecting that thus far. Given the fact that we sold off into the close, that's not exactly a bullish sign. So again, a cause for concern in terms of the FTSE 100. Now the 10-minute chart of the FTSE itself, again, a cause for concern. Potential HNS formation. Look at this right shoulder. I was long. We were plus 12, plus 13, expecting the pivot high at 6380, 6390 to be hit, and we've created this HNS formation. So it's not looking good, folks. Okay, not looking good in terms of the actual market and how the market responds, and the response thus far. So again, indicating potential weakness. So it's going to be interesting now how the US markets close, and that will dictate sentiment and the next momentum. Now, the only bullish factor, or the strong bullish factor for the FTSE, is the fact that the Shanghai put in a bottoming tail, and you have the mining sector itself into support. So again, I'm going to discuss that in a separate video, but from the actual trading perspective, European stocks certainly are starting to look weak. But again, it's all about Draghi put and whether or not the Draghi put will continue. Okay, so be sure to visit cfds.com for your trading needs. Okay, goodbye now.